Spitzer,
Spitzer.
Spitzer, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
So he's not just a coach, trainer, speaker, and consultant. I would say he's a transformation catalyst, really ready to skyrocket your leadership and organizational success. Equipped with an arsenal of skills like he's PCC, CTC, all the other letters, leadership circle, profile practitioner, and last one, ORSC-T. Mark is your ultimate OKR guru. How's that for a lot of alphabet soup? He's a perfect blend of courage, respect, and care, ready to help you conquer your biggest challenges. So prepare for a thrilling journey as Mark unlocks your true potential, leaving you soaring higher than ever. How's that, Mark?
That's beautiful, Jamie. You're a good writer.
Oh, I know. ChatGPT is a good writer, I will admit.
All right. Well, thanks to ChatGPT for the introduction.
I may have tweaked it a bit. I will admit, but
yeah, for sure.
I can't take all the credit.
Okay, well, let's jump right in. First of all, let me just express my gratitude for taking time out of your day all over the world just to join us for a bit, and I hope to make it worth your while. This talk is called Catalyzing Leadership Growth with OKRs, and so it's really about sort of the opportunities that present themselves when you're using and adopting OKRs and sort of why that's important. So I'm going to dive right in. Can you see my screen first of all? Yeah, okay, cool. Actually, hold on 1 second. Interesting that just happened. That is the wrong slide. Hold on 1 second. That was fascinating. Okay, here we go. Give me a second. Funny, you would have thought I would have taken care of this during previous X session. 1 second. And I'm about to share my screen again.
No worries.
Okay, how about now? You can see the date is correct. You see it?
Yep.
Okay.
It's great.
So first thing, I love OKRs. And for me, OKRs are dreams with deadlines, right? They're not just metrics, they're not just measurements. So if you're new to OKRs, or if you have some idea of OKRs, you might recognize them as a powerful goal setting system, right? Used to set ambitious goals with measurable results. So here's an example. Heather's probably seen this example before. And if any of you have seen my previous talks, then you've seen this. But one example would be setting an objective like making digital payments more convenient, right? We do all sorts of online payments. And so you could imagine just some company with an app that needs to make this better. They're getting feedback from their customers. This is the #1 thing for them to go after. Well, how would they know they're more convenient? So you need some measurements here, right? Something. So they've said they want an 80% reduction in time. And for them, this is super ambitious. And the second thing they want to do, they want to take payments out of people's tasks that they need to perform. So just sign them up for autopay. So they figure if they double the number of people in autopay and they reduce the time for the rest of them by 80%, then that's awesome. That's a huge win. So objectives, tend to be action oriented. They start with a verb. They're short, clear, and memorable. And then the key results need to be quantifiable, right? If they're not quantifiable, we're not really holding ourselves accountable to know if we're on track, right? We want them to show some kind of evidence and be outcome oriented. And so if we think about OKRs, I don't know what you think some of the benefits are for OKRs. There's certainly a different list you'll see depending on what you read. For me, these are the top 3. Focus, give people something to rally around. What is that something? So instead of having multiple things that they want to focus on, get something that is clearly the #1 priority. 2, make an impact. If you use OKRs well, you can not only focus, but you can choose the right thing, the thing that matters, and work hard to make an impact in that area. And then the third thing for me with OKRs is generating some insights. Don't wait until the end to know how you're doing with the OKRs. have some measurements that are going to tell you how you're doing so that you can learn and adjust and make better decisions along the way. So this is a lot of the power of OKRs. But to be successful with OKRs, some change is required, right? So you can certainly retrofit your existing work into some OKRs. And I'm sure some of you have done that before, right? It's actually a fine place to start, is to say, hey, here's the work we're committed to. How would we measure the success of that? But eventually you want to get to a point where you're kind of shifting and saying what's most important, and then trying to figure out how would we measure that, and then what work might we choose that could help us achieve that goal. So you want to flip that around. Your metrics need to convey the impact of the work, not just vanity metrics. So there's a tendency for people to just pick something that's easy or something that kind of makes them feel good, like number of people trained in Agile, or number of visits to a site or something like that. In order for people to set really ambitious goals, they need to feel safe. So if you really want to make an impact, you need ambitious goals. They're going to need to feel safe. Second thing is you're going to need to change the way that you plan and execute to support the OKRs. So this is a Scrum Masters of the Universe is the name of this group. So if you're using Scrum, why not have sprint goals that support your OKRs? So you do actually have to make changes to planning and execution that support the OKRs, right? You can't just ignore them and go till the end. Last things, you need full commitment from your people, from your peers, right? And so how do you get that? And then you need to support some kind of vision and strategy. So OKRs, I think they're widely popular right now, right? People are like, all right, we need to go do this thing. And if we do this thing, magic's going to happen. Well, no, actually, there's work you got to put in. And this is actually a change initiative. And so like any change initiative, leadership must change. So it's the same with Agile as a change initiative. It's the same with DevOps as a change initiative. Pick any change initiative you want. The people are the ones that need to be able to change. You can't just install a set of processes. So if we think about leadership, just a quick mention of like typical leadership journey. So see what you think of this definition. Take a couple of seconds here and read it. Put your thumb up if you're done reading it. Okay. That was fast, Heather, but I saw it. So this leadership's definition sit okay with you? So you notice it doesn't say anything about a title, but typically a leadership doesn't have to start with a title, but often if you have certain titles, you're expected to be a leader. So I want to start out first with that definition. And what happens for a lot of folks is you don't start kind of creating better people around you, right? And lifting everyone else up. And that's not where you start. You started with, you were really good at something. You are a programmer, you are a project manager, you are an analyst, you were something, right? You're a tester. And they said, you know what, you're really good at this. We should give you some more responsibility. And at some point you go, you know what? I think I'll take that. It's got more money. I get to learn something new, whatever. But when people do that, there's a tendency to rely on the familiar, right? What got me to this point? And what needs to happen is you need to acquire new skills along the way, but this can be kind of scary. And so the relationship between OKRs and leadership is that to be successful with OKRs, right, to realize the benefits that we went over and have these really kind of make the impact they need to make, leadership actually has to change. And so there's 3 different growth opportunities that I wanted to share with you that are possible for leaders in an OKR setting. The first is shifting from tactics to strategy, which is a pretty big deal. Increasing engagement in your organization. And the third is to gain alignment with peers and direct reports. So let's hit them one at a time. So the first one, shifting from tactics to strategy. So many of the OKRs that I see are very tactical, right? And when your focus is on work and tactics, then your OKRs start to look like this. So this is a modification of a real one, a slight modification, right? Integrate some API into program offers. And then there's a list of things here that talk about integration being enabled, integration for tracking and actions, implementing metrics but there are no measurements, right? It's a set of activities that somebody's going to go do, but what is it that they expect to happen when they do these things? And so this is very common that people expect these kinds of things and that leadership kind of supports them or expects them, right? Very tactical. In terms of leadership models, there's a number of different things out there. There's this one's from Leadership Agility, which is a model by Bill Joyner and Stephen Josephs. Anyone familiar with this one? Yeah, Peter. Okay. It's a good book out there if you want to go read about this. I think they have classes as well, but they define a number of different leadership plots along an evolution path. And there's more than show up in this diagram. I think this diagram was actually from Brad Swanson's website. He's another Agile coach out of Colorado. But they start you off here. Most people, most leaders fall into what we call an expert category, right? They focus on work and tactical. But for them to advance, they need to start to introduce more strategic thinking. And this lines up well with OKRs because the best OKRs support strategy, right? So what is strategy? Strategy is an intent rather than a plan. Like what are we going to do? What are we going to not do? It could be an approach to achieve an outcome. Might be some kind of hypothesis to test. We believe if we take this approach, then we'll be able to achieve this. In terms of OKRs, there's a couple questions you can ask with strategy in the lower left here. Where will you play? Which is kind of it's more of a question of, it could be geographical, right? Could be for your business. Where do we want to go expand our business? We might want to go sell in new markets or increase our market share somewhere. It could just be a decision, right? To adopt a particular technology or not, or a decision not to do particular things, right? How will you win? So there's where will you play? How will you win? You're making decisions here. And then how will you know you've won? This is where OKRs come in. So you're not keeping score on this strategy to find out if this is going to be helpful or not. How does this match with your strategy definition? Does this fit? So what I find when it comes to strategy is a lot of people do spend time in the tactical space. And even if the word strategy gets used, it's often not put in place. I've seen people at multiple levels of leadership that often kind of defer to their bosses. And one of the reasons that they do this is because cascading is in place. And so cascading can be kind of a loaded term. Often what it means is that OKRs get set at a higher level and the people below them kind of wait to see what the higher level has setting before they ever go set their own. And when that happens, there can be a tendency to not kind of think about your own area, right? Your own organization, the purpose of that organization, your customers in that organization, the products and services you offer, and come up with your own idea of what should be happening. And so what we want to do instead is really have multiple layers of leadership setting OKRs, right? And allowing those to inform each other. And so what this diagram shows you is, the higher up you get in an organization, the further out you look. So you could see strategic leadership at the highest levels of organization, maybe being up 2 to 3 years, some annual ones sort of in the middle layers of an organization, and down at the product or team levels, working at 3 months. And so we want people all feeling responsible for strategy. If everybody is thinking about strategy, you can do what's best for your customers and you can align with one another. And if you do something like this, what this is going to enable is, and some of you may have seen this slide too, it's going to allow you to create options. So this top portion above the dashed line is an objective with some key results fanning out. They're the same ones we looked at before. And then for any particular key results, we can create some ideas or some options that we may want to select that we think are most likely to achieve that key result. Right? So if we need some hypotheses to test our strategy, let's pick something and see if it works. And so this is how you start to put strategy in place in a way that allows you to learn. And so along the way, what you can do is this is basically showing along the top is one key result, along the bottom is a second key result. And if our baseline for the top is we were trying to get from 5 minutes that it takes to complete a payment down to 1 minute, and today we're at 2.5 minutes, and we're, let's say, halfway through the time box of this OKR cycle, how are we feeling about this one? So you've cut the time basically in half. You're trying to get to 80%. You've got, let's say, another 3 sprints to do it. How are you feeling? Confident or not confident? Is nodding your head confident? Okay, thumbs. All right, I'll take that. What about the one at the bottom? No, the one at the bottom says we're trying to double the number of enrollees in autopay. We had 100. We're trying to get to 200. We're about, let's say 40% through the time box, and we've only increased it by 25%. Feeling good or feeling not so good? Yeah, poop. All right, not so good. So what if I told you, though, that this had an 80% confidence? We were 80% confidence we could get there, right? So that might surprise you, but this additional piece of information is where you're learning along the way. And this learning is what allows you to see if the strategy is working or not and to make adjustments. And likewise, while the top number looked good, it could be that you've gotten as much as you think you're going to get out of this, these reductions in time, right? And the rest of it might be super hard to get. And so you do this by learning. And so what happens here, if anyone's familiar with conscious leadership, so there's this great video out there that you can watch, and I forget the actual name of it, but I can provide it later if you want. But they basically draw this line, right, for leadership. And they talk about you're either above the line or below the line at any given point in time. And if you're above the line, you're open, curious, and committed to learning. Well, if you're doing what I just showed you, it's gonna be a lot easier as a leader to be open, curious, and committed to learning, because there's gonna be different options out there. There's gonna be measurable results. There's gonna be something that is gonna be impactful, and you're not gonna be focused on tactics and strategy. In the other world, right, where you have more tactics and strategy, you're more interested in, is it done yet? Are you doing it right? And there might be you as the subject matter expert kind of more committed to sort of being right in this circumstance. And so just by doing some of these things, there's more of an opportunity for you to kind of live above the line as a leader. And so what you can start to do as you make this shift is change the one we looked at before that was tactical and say, well, the reason we want to integrate this, which the objective looks just the same, is to increase actionable insights by 20%. So they think that they can get better data to make better decisions, to take real actions on. And they want to make promotion adjustments. So they're doing these marketing promotions, but what they're realizing is it takes too long during these promotion processes to make any changes. And so now they should say by how much, right? So that's a little bit of a flaw in this one. But as you're starting to kind of make this shift, this is what your OKRs can look like. So that allows us to start to transition to here, right? Become a little bit more of an achiever, right? More of a strategic focus, and about 35% of leaders fall into this category. Now, we looked at this sort of above the line, below the line as a leadership model. We looked at this leadership agility as a leadership model. There's also this universal model of leadership. Any exposure to the leadership circle profile, it's fantastic. It's based on research, and there's a book that I'll share at the end that supports a lot of this, but they came up with a set of creative competencies that are most highly correlated to leadership. And the highest you can get in terms of correlation is a 1, so where R equals 1. And so this space of strategic focus falls into the achieving category. And achieving and relating are the two most highly correlated leadership competencies. So if leaders are really good in these two areas, leadership is going to be a competitive advantage for them. So let's hit the second one. The second one is all about increasing engagement for your organization. Organizations are constantly measuring engagement, right? It's super important. Things have shifted over time. We have a global workforce. We have global attendees, right? And everybody has sort of different things that are important to them. What can be beautiful about this, and Heather, sorry to keep mentioning your name, but you're like right in front of me, and I can get a signal from this. So I assert that OKRs done well can infuse energy to teams and organizations. And this is a quote from one of your colleagues there. It was a product manager in one of the other areas, actually in DAX, that said, "I hate how much I love this." And this was a product manager after they'd been doing OKRs for a while because they came in skeptical because it's just another new process, right? And so if we just make it another new process, then yeah, you're not going to get the benefits out of it. But this was an amazing thing to experience. So the way leaders can help with this is, and we use this term conscious leaders. So conscious leaders, are people that are sort of really intentional with their leadership style, right? They know how they want to be. They're not just reactive, right? They don't just see everything as a problem to fix. They're very deliberate about how they want to be and their vision. But three things pop out in this. They're masters of managing energy, and they create a culture that is engaged, on purpose, and clear, right? There's a lot more to it than that, but let me draw your attention to engaged, on purpose, and clear. And so engagement is this term we throw around a lot. Just quick definition: engagement is an emotional state where we feel passionate, energetic, and committed towards our work, right? Bringing our best selves. Like, I hope that each of you has time at work where you feel this way, right? And that you are, or if you haven't had it lately, that you remember that time, because that time is amazing. When you are in this kind of zone, this is the best that you can be, right? And it's just awesome because we all have so much to give. And so one place that, one potential challenge that comes up for people is how many OKRs they should have. And so this challenge comes up at an organizational level. Should we have one for this organization, or should we have several? What about the team level? Should we have one per team or something else? And so I'm going to tell you a quick story about a leader, very quick story about a leader who faced this situation and a little bit more with her organization and their engagement. So there was a product manager who wondered three things. One, she had just taken over a group of about 15 teams, and there was sort of a reorganization that went on there. And she took on some new teams and new products, and she sort of wondered, like, how, and she was not the one that decided how these all came together. And so she was kind of wondering, how do these things fit together, right? How do I make sense of all this? This was important to her. And she shared this, right? Which is also making herself a bit vulnerable, right? That she doesn't have all the answers at first. And knowing that she had to create OKRs for this, she also kind of said, well, how do I set goals and direction without a cohesive vision? Right? How do I do this? How many OKRs should I have? What should they be centered around? How do I do something meaningful here, not just kind of tick the box? And the third thing was, a lot of the products that this group worked on were products that hadn't got a lot of funding, investment, intention. They weren't as exciting as some of her peer organizations' products that had all the new tech and that were more customer facing. And so, the morale was kind of low. And she's like, well, how do I improve that in the face of all this stuff? And so what I thought was really cool was she kind of said, all right, look, I need to kind of get a sense of number one. And so in part, she did that with a little bit of coaching, but she didn't leave it there. What she said was, I need to model clarity, right? And I would add kindness and hope, which is something that was inspired by Brene Brown. So if you read her book, Dare to Lead, she talks about modeling these, right, as being daring leaders. And what she did was she brought her people together to make sense of their own worlds, right? So who are the customers that you serve, right? Which of you serve the same customers? Where do we rely on each other? Where do we need each other? Not just dependencies, but where should we kind of join forces a little bit more to help these particular customers? And what she was able to do across these 15 teams is consolidate them with the help of her team, right? She engaged her team to come together and do this work collaboratively online in Mural right? A collaborative tool to consolidate into 3 separate missions in her organization and capture those with meaningful posters. So she was able to get the answer for her group. Her answer for her group was at an organizational level, each year, she was going to create 3 distinct OKRs, and that would give these 15 teams focus, right? It was something like, let's say 5 for one, 5 for another, 5 for another. And so that was modeling clarity, right? And it was helping these people see what their purpose was, right? Understanding your purpose is so important to being engaged and effective, but this is something that leaders sometimes don't take time to do. And so if they do take time to do this, they start to kind of shift into this catalyst area, which 10% of leaders find themselves in. So you're doing this here by setting purpose, by setting vision, and by connecting people to that purpose and to each other. And so now you're starting to hit kind of this left side of these creative competencies that highly effective leaders demonstrate. And so you're starting to kind of relate in this area because you're showing that you have a caring connection with folks. And as a leader, you're not just asking people to do this, you're there with them. You're there with them, supporting them and being kind of open and vulnerable in this space. So the last thing, shift that we want leaders to make, the last opportunity for leaders to grow and improve, is to really gain alignment. And so what the heck do we mean by that? So we'll get into that in a second. Some of you may have seen this as well. Alignment is all about just trying to make sure that where things should work in the same direction, they do. And so what are our opportunities here to align either across teams or upwards through organizations? Right, so this could be part of a big project or program structure. It could be just how your departments are set up. But we want to take the time to do alignment well. If we don't do alignment, people pull in different directions. Heather, have you been surprised by another team, right, that asked you for something that either disrupted your OKR or vice versa, you needed them and they weren't ready to support you? Yes, I see you nodding your head, right? So this is a common thing. And even if you're not using OKRs, you probably talk a lot about dependencies, right? If you're doing Agile at all. So this is huge. Now, what happens sometimes is, this is kind of on the microcosm. This happens a lot, actually. When we roll out OKRs, now when we did it, and I'm just going to say it was at John Deere, right? So the last place where I got to know Heather and a bunch of other people was at John Deere. And this happens pretty much everywhere, though, is somebody will start using OKRs in one space. In this case, it's the product space. So you got a product manager who says, hey, we're using OKRs to define product goals. And then somebody else says, ooh, I need OKRs for my technology work too, right? So you might have an architect of some kind or some senior engineering manager, director, someone at that level that says, that looks cool, I want to use that too, right? Because we need to move to the cloud. We need to improve DevOps. We need to do artificial intelligence. Hey, I want to use ChatGPT, right? They have all these goals that are super important to them. And so, for them to align is super important, but what do we mean by alignment? So alignment is like getting horses to pull in the same direction. This is a quote from Mary Beth O'Neill, who wrote the book Executive Coaching with Backbone and Heart. She says, pulling in the same direction. This often means addressing both conflict, which she frames as managing different perspectives, and authority, managing who decides as you achieve work results. And so you need to be really deliberate here on how you're going to do this. Now, in the case I just showed you, this was actually really simple. The two of them, the group product manager and the group engineering manager, actually got along really well. And so for them, this was actually an easy conversation. They had a little bit of coaching, and the idea was, what if these weren't different things? What if they were the same thing, right? What if you merge technology in so that you're not fighting for the attention of the people on your teams? And so it was kind of a clear win for them. And so the only difficulty for them wasn't the agreement or the alignment, it was just figuring out how to construct the new OKR. But there was a catch. And the catch was, while they aligned as peers, they needed to get alignment and support from the people that reported to them. And there had already been some discussion about what they were trying to do with technology. And there was a concern by some of the product managers that if we make the technology move and we shift, we're not going to be able to give customers what we need to give them. And so they were trying to solve customer needs through their existing platform. They knew they could do it. They knew they could do it soon. And they were worried that if they shifted to this new technology, a new platform, they were not going to be able to get there on time. And so the process that needs to be gone through to basically figure out how to gain alignment, there's actually a 3-step process you can take people through. And so if you want to grow as a leader in how you gain alignment, you need reps. It's like anything else. You want to get good at something, you do reps on it. And so these are the 3 steps. First, create collective clarity, right, within the group that you need to align to this. 2, acknowledge the reactions of the team, right? Allow them to react and then acknowledge these. And 3, get a plan for getting commitment. What you don't want to do is just send out some email and tell people what's going on. And then people have different interpretations of this and rumors start to happen. There's a lot of hallway conversations. People kind of say, yes, I support it, but really don't, right? There's a lot of just things that can happen that aren't very healthy. And so when you're aligning, you're trying to gain true commitment. So let me walk through these. On collective clarity, the first thing that has to happen is the leader needs to describe a decision that's being made, right? What is the decision that's being made? We discussed doing X, Y, Z. We want to make this shift to the new platform. Here's the reason why we're trying to do this, right? And you want to be specific behind that reason, not just tell people that you're doing it. Then allow the team to kind of paraphrase. Like, what are you hearing? What assumptions do you have? Right? And check those. Have them say it out loud. Because there's a lot of stuff that we tell ourselves as stories and that we make up as people. And it's all the human side that really gets in the way of doing things like OKRs, change initiatives, being successful at work, being happy at work, all this stuff. And so leadership really needs to give them the space to kind of paraphrase, check their assumptions. And then the leader is confirming or correcting the team's understanding of what's going on. So if the team says, is it X, Y, Z, the leader can say, no, it's actually more like this, right? So it gives the leader the chance to clarify what's happening. Because the first thing that needs to happen is you need to all agree what the decision is and what's happening. And the leader needs to know that the team understands. They have to know. So you're not done with this process until the leader knows that the team understands. And so while this sounds super easy, people tend not to take the time to do this, and you want to kind of follow this recipe to start with. And the leader, by the end of this, should be able to describe anything that the team misunderstood. And this helps the leader grow too, right? My team misunderstood X, Y, Z. There's something I could have maybe said differently, or my team maybe thinks about these things first, and the next time I have one of these, I'm going to think about that with this team. So second step in the process, the team describes their reactions. Now, this is not an opportunity to be a jerk, right? Or super colorful, or you want to be real, but you don't want to be judgmental. You want to be specific. You want to describe, hey, here's my reaction to this. So give the team the space to do that. You're starting to create some safety, and you're also creating vulnerability, because as a leader, you have to listen to this, right? You have to listen to real feedback that the team's going to give on what's just happened. So the leader now needs to paraphrase. So we're kind of reversing this. And they need to watch their own reaction. They can't be defensive. They can't get into selling, right? They need to just now paraphrase what they're hearing the team say, right? You can't correct them, anything else. And this can be super, super hard for a leader, because while these are just words on a slide, inside there could be some emotions. They might start feeling hot. They might start feeling something kind of up in their head. Their body is going to start telling them how they're reacting to this thing. And I think we've all been there, right? And so this is not as easy as it sounds. And the leader needs to actually kind of appreciate the team, right? Describe how hearing this is helpful, right? What are they getting from these reactions that they appreciate, right? And so now we're kind of encouraging, right, and creating a culture where it's okay to say something and it's actually appreciated and it's being heard. Now, the team may have some reservations, and you've probably seen like a fist to 5 or fist of 5 before. it's good to know where people stand. And so use something like it, but you really need to know, are people willing to sign up for this stuff or not? So while they understand, and I understand their reactions, do we truly have commitment or not? And so, well, what do we do if everybody's objecting? Well, there's different reasons why people are going to object. There might just be this cultural pushback, like we don't do things like that around here, right? That's not the way things work around here. There might be real threats to success, like they brought up some things that are really valid, and you as a leader hadn't thought about them. There were some blind spots, and you're actually concerned about these things, and you need to solve them in order to succeed. Or in some cases, there just could be like one person or two people that just really are not on board, and they're refusing. And so as a leader, if it's a cultural hesitation, you need to kind of bravely lead people through change. They're on an edge in terms of their own comfort zone, their ability to respond to whatever this change is. And you have to lead the shift in behavior. You have to show them it's okay. You have to take them very confidently and caringly through this process. If you have real threats to success, this is where you can be open to influence, right? Like you had an idea of how this could work, but now you need to listen to the team, and the team can actually help solve the problem. So show that you're open to influence. That's how a leader can grow through this process. The last one, really, you just need to address privately. It kind of is what it is. You need to talk to that person. You need to get people on board and bought in, and you need to do it in a way where everybody is truly bought in, so they can bring their passion and energy to the work. So like I said, this is going to test the leader's resolve, right? To hear this feedback, to get any kind of pushback. You really sort of want to live at the top of the line and be open, curious, and committed to learning, but this is super hard, right? You need to avoid the bottom. So you need to just kind of remind yourself, where do I want to be, above the line or below the line? And as you're starting to invite feedback and you're starting to show that you're open to be influenced by the team, right? And get clarity and really listen to them, you're really going to start to shift the culture, right? And be able to have tough conversations safely. So the goal overall is to have increase the leadership effectiveness in your organization, right? And do this in the face of OKRs. So you can not only succeed with OKRs, but you can create more effective leaders and have leadership as a competitive advantage. So just to summarize, OKRs are designed to focus on what matters most. They're most effective when they support a strategy. To create ambitious goals, you've got to be aligned with each other and connected to purpose. And you've got to be able to surface reservations and deal with anything that could be an issue and get full commitment. And leaders must meet the challenge. They've got to accept they have a role in strategy, no matter what level of the organization they fall in. And I see a question in a minute. So leaders have to tend to their people, provide clarity of purpose and connection with each other, and then act diligently to gain alignment on important decisions, right? Not every decision requires that whole alignment process we went through, but the big ones do. So just remember, if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. So if you have a bunch of questions, Khaled, like difference between OKRs and KPIs, you might check out this video about OKRs here. So that QR code is a 30-minute talk I did in Prague last fall called Demystifying OKR Coaching. It probably has the answer for you in there. I could certainly try to answer it at the end if we get enough time. These are a few of the books that inspired this talk. And I'm about to shift, if I can, if everybody has that QR code. If not, if somebody has it and put the link in, maybe Mark, you already did it. Okay, so link's in there. I would like to get your feedback on this talk. And so there's another link for that. And then the right link is my LinkedIn. Some of you are already connected with me. If you want to connect with me or follow me, I would love that. And that's what I got for today. So Jamie, Mark.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mark, excellent. It was a lot of new great concepts there that can be applied at any level of leadership, in my opinion. So does anyone have any questions for Mark? We have 10 minutes left. If you have any questions, just go ahead, and if you're shy, you can put it in the chat, or just unmute yourself and ask your question.
Good, Caitlin. Good to hear.
Yeah, that's how I feel too, as well.
I think it's pretty common to go round and round with these. I mean, it's not easy to do these well.
Agreed.
I mean, I know there was a question on KPIs and OKR. If there aren't any other ones, I could bring up a different deck and just bring up a slide or two on that if you want.
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to stop sharing for a second just so that I can get the right deck up. I probably should just put some hidden slides in this one. Give me a second. Actually, let me do.
I'm just trying to challenge your tech skills, Mark.
Yeah, it's really just how efficient can I be with this stuff.
So I have a question.
Okay, Karen.
Okay, so this was a comment that a few people rose, and how do you get your leadership buy-in, right? You have to start this with leadership buy-in. So what were some past challenges you had with getting, leadership buy-in, and how did you cross that hurdle? Easy questions first.
Well, I think I mean, ideally you want leadership buy-in in the beginning, right? So often, yeah, it's going to sound like I'm avoiding your question, but then I'll be sure to tackle it head on. Okay, so the first thing I would say is that I have found leaders seem to love this stuff. They tend to love the book, Measure What Matters, and they have it like showcased like behind them quite frequently, and they actually love it because of the stories they tell in there about all the success, and they're like, oh, we just need to do this, but they don't realize exactly how much is involved in the change and whatever. And so often they're bought into the idea of OKRs, the promise of OKRs, and they definitely want to do it, but they don't know all the details that it's going to require, is what I found. I don't know if other people, you sounds like are you in a place where the leaders are not bought in?
Well, I do organizational change management, so that would be a yes.
Okay.
And I was really at loss of coming up with a question because your presentation was so good. And then I saw those comments about, engaging leadership. And I said, well, I'm going to float that out there. Engagement is essential for results. And how did you ease them into dedicating the amount of time required? Right?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So this was my change. Here's the change approach we took with OKRs. First thing is you need to basically have some big talks that you do at different points where you're expressing what OKRs are about, what they're not about, and the promise. Like, what benefits could you get? How might this help somebody? So there needs to be a reason why you'd want to adopt them in the first place. And people need a space they can get on board, ask questions, that kind of thing. So that's one thing you could do. Another thing is you gotta find people that are excited about it or interested in it. Hey, right. I have this really tough project, or hey, I have this area that's really been struggling, or hey, find somebody who's motivated, and then kind of connect with them on, well, what would success look like for you there if we apply them in this place? Because then all you're doing is helping them succeed. Everything, right. In my opinion, everything needs to have a service-oriented mindset where you're doing Agile, Scrum, whatever. You're here to do a tough job to help other people. So the first thing you need to know is what's important to those people. Bye, Mark. So I don't know, that's kind of where I start with this, and then just start small, go help those people, and then start have them talk about the successes they had. so that other people can see that. Because if there's people that have reservations because they don't want to take the risk and they don't want to make themselves vulnerable because they feel like they either, they don't know how to do it, they might fail with it, whatever, they have some support. They have some confidence by the fact that other people have done.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Mark. This has been a fabulous time spent.
Sure, great question. Where are we on time? Yeah.
I had a question. How are you measuring the success of implementing OKRs at an organization?
not the number of people that are doing OKRs. It's oh man, I'm gonna forget some stuff. I don't even know if Heather's gonna remember at this point, but we actually did when we were rolling this out at John Deere, for instance, like we had OKRs for our OKRs. So, right, because we wanted to make sure that we were leading by example. And it was actually, that's the fun thing about OKRs is a lot of times people don't know what measurements to use. And so we just tried some things out. So one of the things we were doing was, I think I called it the OKR quality index or something like that, I forget. But it was basically, yeah, okay, so something like that. And so we said, well, how would we measure the quality of people's OKRs? And so we tried to come up with a way, and I think we did it through a survey, and maybe we're also using this tool called QUALITATIve, and that tool actually had ways it would assess and evaluate kind of whether the OKRs themselves were good or not. And so there's some different things that we tried out there as options as a kind of a program group that was owning and doing this. But I'd say with each area that you're working with, you want them to be able to express that these are actually helping them. So that way could be different in addition to whatever you have that's common, let's say. Great question. Did I answer it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I
Okay.
think I jumped the line as well. So I'll let somebody else ask the next one. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Hi, Mark. Good evening.
Hello. Good evening.
Yeah, Alberto here. So I just want to ask, thanks first and foremost for the great delivery. What's the core difference between this OKR stuff and the balanced scorecards? In the past, a few years down the line, balanced scorecards used to be like the way organizations, went towards. So I would love you to share some light. Thank you.
Sure. You're going to do that to me with 2 minutes left. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this in a minute, and let's just see how this works. And otherwise, we can take it offline if you want to connect with me, and I can try to do that. But let me just do what I can. Okay. So I'm going to go this route because I feel like if my hypothesis is that if I tell you the difference between KPIs and OKRs, possibly it might help, maybe. Okay, so when I hear balanced scorecard, I often think of things that you want to be good in certain areas, right? And you want to be good in all those areas, or you want to be good in an area and you don't want to then also be bad in an area. So you can certainly have balancing metrics in an OKR, but I think generally there's just some health metrics that I would call KPIs. And so I would think a lot of the balanced scorecard stuff could fall into health metrics, which would be generally we want to be healthy. It's like our own temperature, our body temperature, right? If our body temperature, I'm just going to give you the Fahrenheit number. Sorry, Peter, if you want to just chime in with Celsius, it's fine. But like 98.6 is generally what's considered a normal body temperature, right? And so we don't really care. That's not a goal of ours. We're not super excited for this quarter. I'm going to keep a 98.6 temperature. That's not what we're after. But what we want to know is, when does that number become unhealthy? When am I at 101, 102, 103? Do I start to get hot? When am I at, like, I don't know, 98 or something, and I'm cold and whatever? So we want KPIs and measurements that are kind of constant, that tell us if we're healthy or not. And if we become super, super unhealthy, then probably we set a goal for a fixed period of time to become healthy, right? Like, I want to lose a bunch of weight, or I want to eat better, or I want to drink less, or something like that, that allows us to do that. When we do that, we put a big focus on something for a fixed period of time that we rally around, and we want to be awesome. After that point, some of those measurements that we use in our OKR may then become health indicators, because now we're already good there. So we don't need to put focus there the next 3 months. Does this help at all?
Yeah, thanks. I'll connect online for further engagement. Thanks.
Okay, I know it's not an exact fit with your question, but that was as close as I could come, I think.
Well, looks like we are at time. If you still have questions, you can reach out to Mark on LinkedIn, I believe, and ask. Otherwise, I will have the recording and the slide deck. I will share that in the next day or two. And Mark, goodness, what an awesome presentation. Thank you so much. I feel like we need, like, this was part one, and now we need part two to take a even deeper dive. This is obviously not a 1 hour topic, but you did a great job in hitting
Thank you.
some of the really important points. So we really appreciate it. And we hope you'll join us again.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really grateful, and I wish you continued success with this meetup. I'm really impressed with what you've done. So
Yeah, we're glad to have you. And everybody else, thank you. Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate it. And we hope you have a great rest of your day, evening, wherever you are in the world. Morning, I'm not even sure. So,
yeah,
all right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much for organizing this.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
These are
We
always
look forward to part
Thanks.
two.
Thanks, Mark. Bye.
Bye.